otherwise I'll miss some of these points. And also it might be good for you because certain things we might be doing, and if we don't record it, you're not going to be, it won't benefit you. You're not going to be able to go back and see it. So I will send the
Absolutely.
link to you after, probably I'll send it tomorrow because after this I had to go and get my car serviced. my
Are you
mechanic,
in?
my mechanic moved, so I had to now travel a little bit too. Yeah. Yeah, so that presentation that I sent you, we can go over that because the audience that I was talking to yesterday may not have been the right audience for me, but they told, a lot of times when you go give a talk, they tell you the audience, and it turns out the audience is different than what they told you. So I was giving a talk to a college, and they said that most of the students are going to be people that are working who are taking courses part-time. So they are basically using college to get a better job. But as it turned out, most of the people were students. So,
Okay.
but anyway, at that point, there's not much I can do to change my, I tried to improvise as best as I could and not go into, but I said, look, let this be like a lesson, even though some of it may not apply, but you got to start thinking about it. Because the interviewing has, I mean, you're the one, you're on the field interviewing, so you can tell me what you're finding out. But what I think is that people, this is a skill, by the way. Interviewing is a skill, and people are not learning this skill. They are getting a job, but then they feel like, okay, now I got a job. Now I can use my other skills that you already have to do a job. And those may be completely different. And then at some point, because you haven't developed and mastered this skill, you can't, get ahead in your career because this is the skill you need in order to get
Absolutely.
ahead. And then people just stay at their job because they don't have the skill, so they can't get a new job. They get comfortable. And after a few years, the company, something happens unforeseen, and you are out of a job. And now you're getting older and you don't have this skill, and it's hard. I see this all the time.
Yes.
A lot of
Absolutely.
people who are like, luckily, Hire Heroes does a pretty good job, but a lot of people from the military do not actually develop this skill in the military. They develop a lot of other skills, but not this one.
Absolutely. And
Because they're
it's
not
the
really,
skill set.
uh,
It is definitely a skill set that I've obtained over time post my military career.
yeah,
Uh, I wish when I exited the military back in 2005 that it was programs in place and people like yourself that I could use as a resource to help better me as I go face these business challenges or interview challenges, trying to obtain a job in the civilian world. So I definitely am very happy of where the programs and people like yourself that's in place to help individuals like myself and then also individuals that's leaving the military and getting ready to go into the civilian world to have you know have the opportunity to take advantage of reliable resources like yourself and hire
right, right.
heroes.
So I'm going to put some pressure on you. Everybody that I've ever coached the second time, they've all gotten jobs. So I'm
Well,
putting some pressure on you.
I'll meet up
Typically,
to your expectations. Trust me, I'm not. I catch on quick. That's one of the
yeah,
things that
because a lot of the veterans that I talk to, and I don't do this anymore because in the past I used to do counseling, and I don't do counseling because somehow a lot of the people that I was working with were not ready, or they had some other issues which is kind of outside what I can help them with, and they would never. I mean, I would spend 2 hours with them, and then they would. I leave it up to them because in the beginning I used to contact them and I said, wait, that's not my job. They got to be motivated. I can't want it more than they do. And some of them say that they were going to contact me, they want to work with me, and they never do. And then I don't know what happens to them. But the ones that are really aggressive and saying, listen, there's a resource available, let me work with him, and they all end up getting good jobs. So I know one guy, the last one that I worked with, he ended up getting a job at Amazon. Previously,
nice.
previously there was a woman. He got a job somewhere in Florida. Yeah, IT job in somewhere in Florida. I forgot. Not Tallahassee, but out.
Orlando. Tampa,
no, Jackson.
Jacksonville,
I think it's in
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. Yeah, Jacksonville. And that was like a snap one where he had an interview. His name was Jelani. In fact, I have his video in my promo, and he needed help. So they asked me, can I, help him on a short notice? I said, sure. So I did a mock interview like I did with you. And after mock interview, we chatted. And then immediately he contacted me and said, hey, would you be available next day if I can just go over certain things with you? Because he had an interview the following day. And he went there. And I think he went there with full confidence. And he ended up getting a job.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So he was, because a lot of times, I mean, my value add is not like I'm going to tell you anything you don't know. It's just so that you have gone over with somebody, you get a different perspective. And then when you go in, you will have that confidence. You feel like, hey, I already done it once. Now I can do it here when it really counts. So your practice is like realistic. This is not like you're practicing by yourself. This is like as realistic as it's going to get. So when you get in front of an interviewer, it's almost like practice. It shouldn't look any different.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I like, I know that you're saying your service, did you say it's not value added?
No. I was doing counseling. There are two things I was helping. I tell them I'm available to help them in a number of ways. But initially I was counseling, and then I do coaching. So interview is what I really focus on mainly, because that's the last step. Because if you don't interview well, then I don't get involved with the resume part. I don't get involved with anytime you have a face-to-face or a phone interview, I will get involved, because I'll walk you through that till you get a job, because it's not good for you to suddenly go to another person, and that person you have to explain everything what you did, and you have to try to build that chemistry. It's hard work. It's too much for you. And at that point, people will end up giving up. So I said, look, I'll stay with them as long as they're willing to work with me. I don't need to add more people, because that's not what I want to make sure the person that I'm working with ends up getting the job that the person is looking for. As long as that person wants to work with me, but I'm not going to chase them saying, hey, by the way, give me an update. That's their responsibility, because part of me working with me is like a job that if you're not responsive and all that with me, then it kind of reflects on how responsive are you going to be when you get the job. So it's also you're developing some of the skills that you need. And that's when I find out how serious somebody really is, whether they are going to get the job. And some people are very aggressive. There was one woman, and she had like a lot of confidence issue, but she ended up getting a real good job at Raytheon.
Nice.
Raytheon. And there was another person, he had
for an opportunity at Raytheon via LinkedIn.
Yeah, Raytheon was good. They love military people. Then there's a guy who had worked for 30 years, and he was not sure what he wanted to do. He had after 30 years, they're kind of a little bit like, okay, do I want to go back? Where do I fit in? And there are a lot of options that open up for them. So they're kind of a little bit lost. And he ended up joining a small company I don't think he got an executive level job, but he was going to be groomed to become an executive because he had that much experience.
Yes, that's fantastic.
And I remember his name was Vinny, and he beat out close to 10 people.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and the two interviews that I had to help him with, first one was with COO, and then once the CEO liked him, then he had to go and meet with the CEO. Okay. And when the CEO met with him, he actually offered him a job right on the spot.
Wow.
And
so how are some of the ways that you help? I noticed one of the things I like, you're providing I guess I would say a structure, a plan, and not so much a structure, maybe a plan to have in place where when you go in, you're better prepared to, the correct way to answer these questions.
Yeah, so, it's actually, you got to reframe it, because what I'm trying to tell you is that an interview really is a proxy for doing a job, because you're not actually doing a job, but you got to go from that spectrum, uncertainty to certainty, right? And an interview, the entire process is that. So like the question that I would have for you is that, how long have you been interviewing for this new job? Like when did your search begin?
For me, I'm actively in search mode. I've recently, over the past couple of days, I've had several recruiters that admire my skill set and was impressed by my resume, and I'm in the process of scheduling a phone screening, and then from there schedule a either a phone call or a face-to-face. I've had two that's ready for me to move straight forward to face-to-face. The other two were more wanting to do a phone screening. For me, I'm looking for a position where I can really showcase my skill set. I believe that I'm approaching more of a senior role. And from there, I would like to move to leadership. So some of the opportunities eager to add me to their sales force right away are mostly, it's not entry level. I would say it's sort of mid-level. And I believe it'll be a parallel move for me. And I'm looking to make a vertical move.
Okay.
So
okay.
that's the reason why.
So if I understand right now, what you're saying is you want to get a good job. Titles may not even matter at this point. And once you're there, then you want to see there should be an opportunity for you to move into a different role with more responsibility and leadership and things like that. Because I always look at it that titles automatic. I wouldn't get hung up on titles. It's what kind of value are you going to be providing? And if you provide value, then the rest of it automatically takes care of it, because you have to be strategic in how you do it. But at this point, have you gotten any offers that you haven't accepted, or what's
no.
Why is it not? What has prevented you from getting an offer? What do you think is the reason?
Well, I've interviewed with 2 full interview processes with 2 organizations. One I went through with the vice president, a senior vice president, and then a regional vice president. All of them gave me great feedback. The regional vice president told me that he viewed me as being a great fit to the organization where I can immediately come in and make impact. And I asked for the next steps, and he said the senior VP and the VP that I originally met with would draw the conclusion where we'll move from, sending your offer letter to scheduling as your start date. After that, it went cold turkey. I didn't have his contact information, but the VP that I originally interviewed with, it was scheduled for a 30-minute interview. We ended up having an hour interview, and then it was a management position. So I would have a team in place. He had 3 representatives or 3 sales reps that I got a chance to interview them, learn more about their day-to-day activities. I was able to uncover some areas where I can add value and help better their skill set. They enjoyed me. They loved me. And the organization just went cold turkey, never responded back. My most recent interview was
before you move on, so did you ever try contacting them? Was this through a recruiter? How did you?
The name of the company, I'm okay with disclosing this with you. I would never do it to an employer, but I have a little more rapport with you, and you're here to help me, was Robert Half Technologies.
Oh, yeah, that's they're like, not HR, but recruiting.
Recruiting, yes.
Robert Half, and so they're a pretty reputable company.
They are.
And what happened? Did you ever try contacting, saying like, where?
I left a voicemail and I followed with an email and no response. And I was just baffled, because the time that I invest in preparing and taking time off during my work day at Iron Mountain to meet with them, I just felt like, I think employers need to give, candidates, closure, or just be more respectful of their time. And, if they decided somewhere down the line that I was not a good fit, that's okay. Just let me know so I can move on. I was just,
you're probably better off. You don't want to work for a company that cannot even tell you that, hey, because here's the thing. One of the things you saw in one of my slides, that even if they do not hire you, I always say that you want to schedule a 15-minute post-mortem interview, okay? Post-interview. Okay. And the reason for that is not that you're going to change their mind, right? But it's what happened? I lost the video. Oh, here we go. There we go. Okay, I was something popped up. Yeah. And the reason is that if you spend that kind of time with these people face to face, they become part of your network immediately. It's not like it's not like if you don't get the job, like, oh, that's it, I'm done with it, I don't even want to know them. This is all this is all incremental. That just because they may had another candidate that they liked you, because if they invited you and they liked you and you didn't do anything wrong where, you know, you didn't act stupid or anything like that, or you offended them in any way, and it was just a very professional interview, they owe you that courtesy of doing a 15-minute interview just to say, hey, I understand that you had another candidate, you probably had a tough decision, I'm okay with that, but then you move to plan B. If there's another position that ever comes up, I like the way you treated me and I'm interested. Okay, so that's B. And also they may know other people that they may also recommend you. And then also, since you already got them on your LinkedIn network, anything you do, like you're writing a blog or making a video or anything, they will get it. So then they're keeping in touch. And at some point, you may even follow up and send them an email and say, hey, by the way, I just wrote a blog, you might be interested. So they're part of your network because they interviewed you. So don't completely say, just because I interviewed with, I'm done with it since they didn't hire me. It's a learning lesson, right?
Yes.
So like you and I talking, I should be part of your network at this point because we're spending time together. And
Absolutely.
when you're spending time together, sometimes we put people on our network, which we don't even know. I'm like, I don't try to put people on my network that I've never met before. But I've kind of eased up on it a little bit because I don't have that many people on my network because I've been very strict before that. Unless I worked with you, like when I've been in LinkedIn a long time ago, that unless I worked with you or had some sort of an interaction, then only I'll put you in my network. But now it seems like everybody's putting anybody on the network, LinkedIn network. But with all the veterans that I talk to, I expect them to be part of my network.
Absolutely.
So that's something you always want to negotiate ahead of time, saying, look, I understand that you have other candidates and other things. So the other thing I'll tell you is never give company a lot of time to make a decision. Bless you.
Thank you.
Because if you have interviewed, right, here's the thing. If you have interviewed with a company and they're impressed, then at that point, if they're impressed with you, the interview should be ending at that point. You should close it out. And if they're saying like, oh, we got to decide, we got more candidates. No, if you are the person they want, because then they can't feel like that they'll get you if they take too long.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to let them know, listen, I spent a whole day, because they're made a decision already. And the decision they're made is that we like Greg, but let's see if there's somebody better out there. At that point, you should just withdraw your candidacy and saying, look, I need to know within 24 hours. I got other options. And I think I give you the courtesy of giving you 24 hours to make a decision. And if they say, well, we got other candidates, that means that they don't think you're that good. Because if you're that good, then that's it. The interview's over at that point. And they have to let the other candidates know that, listen, at this point, because they haven't invested the time with the other candidate that they have with you. And if they don't want to lose you, then they'll basically tell the other candidates, because that's not your concern, right? Because you basically have interviewed with them. And it's always, they're never going to get the perfect candidate. They have got to get the best alternative that's available at that time. And that's what you are. You're not saying you're never the best candidate. Nobody's ever the perfect candidate because they don't exist. So when companies want that perfect candidate, that'll never exist. And some companies are just in this interview mode all the time. They're looking for that perfect candidate. They don't make decisions. And if they cannot make a fast decision after you have gone through the process and you've met with the regional vice president, senior vice president, at that point, you should not give them more than 24 hours to make a decision. And if after 24 hours, you should say, listen, if after 24 hours, if we're not moving forward, then please withdraw my candidacy because I have other options and I'm going to move forward with other things. And that's it. And you're done with it.
Okay.
Because because part of this whole interviewing is it is a game in a way, okay? And I hate when companies do that if they don't like you, if there's something other candidate they like, they should have the courtesy to let you know within 24 hours. And what I've noticed is right after the interview, they already made up their mind. And believe it, sometimes they already made up the mind even before the interview. They're just kind of going through the
process. Yes.
Yeah, they're just going through like the motion. They're just going through the motion of interviewing. Like, oh, we have to interview. We got 3 candidates. Like I've had situations where they already had they picked out the inside candidate, and I was just being interviewed to show that, hey, we also looked outside. And whenever you lose a job to an inside candidate, you actually had no chance of getting that job. You were just a foil. You were just a foil that they needed to show that, hey, we opened this process up. So if somebody sues them saying that they don't hire anybody from outside, they weren't fair, then they could say, well, look, we interviewed Greg or somebody. Right?
Yeah.
So
yep, you're absolutely correct.
Yes, because I don't want you to feel like, hey, I gave it all and then nothing happened. So another thing is, so here's my thing. When you have a face-to-face interview and you don't get the job, that means that something went wrong, whether it was your preparation or whether it was your qualification. You did not get the intelligence that you needed to really perform during the interview. So then you have to backtrack and saying, okay, what did I needed to know? And what did I not ask at the interview? Because during the interview, at the end of the interview, you should walk away knowing whether you're going to get the job or not. If you're like, I think I did well, but you never really got a soft verbal. You know what I mean? The football they use, like the recruiters, yes. I got a soft verbal, and then there's a commit. Commit means it's an offer, okay?
Yeah.
And then, like, I'll use the football, like, recruiter terminology. When a recruiter gives a soft verbal to a college saying, hey, I like you, I'm soft verbal, and everybody gets all excited, but that doesn't mean anything, okay? Then he commits, like, I am now totally committed after they do the formal, right? Then the recruiter commits. But it's not really a commit till he signs. It's not a real formal until he signs on the signing day.
Yes, you're absolutely correct.
When he signs on a college day, now he is formal. Now he's definitely going to that college, okay? So in a face-to-face interview, you got to get a soft verbal. That means you got to ask in a way that tells them, like, okay, where do I stand here? Where do I stand? When do you think I can start? And if they're giving you like runaround, like, well, Greg, we got a few more candidates, you're not getting the job. I'll tell you right away. If they've got few more candidates they still want to look at, that means that you're not at the top of the list.
You're absolutely right.
And if you're not at the top of the list, then you should just say, look, I'll just be honest with you. I understand you have choice to make, but I have also. And that's part of the negotiation. I need to know by tomorrow. And if you somehow can tell me right now that, I'll give you 24 hours, but if I don't hear you by start of business tomorrow, then please withdraw my candidacy, because I cannot, you spent the time with them. How much more time do they need? And if they need to interview other candidates, because remember, they have their process, you have your process. And you can't just live with, if you're following their process, that means you're kind of telling them that I want you more than you want me. I mean, this is like a strategic decision that you're making, where both sides are making an investment. They're investing in you, and you're investing your career in them. So it's a huge investment that both of you are making. Don't think like they're the ones who are making the investment and you're not, because if you make the bad investment, then you could ruin your career.
Absolutely.
So overall, do you have your resume? You're pretty okay with that, or like?
I went through the services, and I've learned how to even tailor my the resume according to the position that I've applied for. I feel pretty confident in articulating my skill set and how I can add value. For me, I'm more of being more strategic. I'm looking at organizations that I want to be part of that can help develop my skill set and my career, and where I can again display my skill set to the point where they recognize the value that I add as well. So it's more of a strategic approach in finding organizations that I would like to join versus just applying for any every job out there. So I have it, compartmentalized, and what verticals I would like to work in, and in those verticals, what positions that I feel would fit more to my skill set.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because one of the things that I was telling people is that a resume cannot be a static document. It has to be dynamic in a sense that it has to change for not only the job description, but it also has to change. Like, for example, I was pointing out to the students, and I don't think they got it, but I mean, I hope they remembered what I said to them, that like if I was coaching you, this is what I would, like I'm coaching you, but this is what I would tell you, that the resume that you're sending initially, unless it's going to a human being, then you have that resume for a person. But if you're applying to a company, then it's not going to the person. It's most likely it's going to be processed by application tracking system.
That's correct.
And that is going to be based on the job description. So you're going to have to customize your resume to that job description with a very skills-based resume for that specific job description. Then it will select your resume and send it to a recruiter, internal recruiter. Okay. Now the internal recruiter will contact you saying, hey, Greg, we would like to talk to you about this position. At that point, you want to send the resume for the person, which should look different than the resume for the machine. Machine resume is basically loaded with skills, whereas the one for person is basically you're talking about the value that you're going to add. It's more soft skills based, and the hard skills you kind of minimize because you already had that other resume that the machine selected, and they're not going to overrule the machine at this point because those machines are algorithmic driven. So they've programmed into the machine what they're looking for, and when that machine picks out your resume, the machine has already indicated this guy's got the requisite hard skills that we need to get this job done. So the recruiter is not going to override that part. So now the resume you want the recruiter to look at, you focus more on the value that you're going to provide in a narrative basis. Remember, we're talking about like problem, solution, your role, outcome, and lessons learned. So that's what the recruiter. Now, then most people think at that point, oh, I'm done with my resume. I got it to the recruiter. This is when a lot of people make mistakes. You got to get another level deeper because you want to make sure the manager, the hiring manager, doesn't get that resume yet. Okay, that's important to remember. So you tell the recruiter, before you send the resume, let me update it and send you an updated resume. And the reason you want to do that is because you have certain questions that you have to ask. So the recruiter is screening you. You got to reverse screen the recruiter. The recruiter's job is only one thing. He or she needs to get that resume to the hiring manager saying that this guy meets what we're looking for. That's the recruiter's job, okay? So the recruiter at that point, you got to really, and you don't need to be fast. If you need to have a second conversation, have a second conversation. But until you find out exactly what the manager is saying to the recruiter, that's the language that has to be in the resume that you want the recruiter to send to the hiring manager. So when the hiring manager sees that resume, it looks exactly like the person they're looking for. Most people do not do that. They'll send a resume that doesn't speak to what the manager is looking for. And when a manager looks for a resume that they have to fish through and figure out, like, the more time they spend, then if more you confuse them, you're not going to get the job. You got to, don't make them think too hard. If it suddenly looks like that this is the guy we're looking for, then that's what the resume should see. But that's what the hiring manager see in the resume that you're sending to the hiring manager. Most people have one resume, they send it to everybody, and it makes no sense because the hiring manager is looking at it completely differently than the recruiter, than the machine. Those are 3 resumes right there.
Absolutely. And I've learned that through some of the resources that Hire Heroes USA has provided. So I'm pretty good when it comes to the resume, and even with the phone screening. For me, I think I need to just sit down, buckle down, and apply for more opportunities that fit more with my skill set. And I've started heavy from the beginning of the week, and now I'm getting a phone call. So I will keep you in the loop throughout this process. As far as takeaways, I know we had the phone conversation about a week ago, and I'll go back for whatever. If you don't mind, could you resend a recorded conversation? I think I wasn't able to open it when you previously sent it before.
Yeah, because it was a big file, so I have to figure out how to do it. Maybe I'll put it on a cloud and then send you the link. Maybe I'll try that.
Okay.
I mean, the main takeaway, okay, so here are the things. You have a good speaking style. So on a phone, you'll come across really well. The only thing I would add is get to your point quickly.
Okay.
Also, do not focus on the past. Make it, have clarity in the value that you have provided. Like I help, like there has to be a problem. Like, you know, like you got to create a narrative, like say, you know, Jay, this, and it's always a good idea to repeat the person's name. So that way the person feels like you're really having a conversation. So,
Okay.
so, you know, Jay, to tell you, look, let me just give you an example at Performance IT. And they don't know who Performance IT is. So first thing you have to do is just explain what Performance IT does. So briefly, Performance IT is this company that does customized IT managed services, project-based, okay? And when I went there, they had this problem that I saw. So you got to figure, like, how did the problem come across? Did you identify the problem, or somebody said, hey, Greg, here's the problem. Can you take care of it? So you got to figure out how the problem even came about, right? Did you observe it, or somebody brought it, or it was something? So that first you could focus on the problem. And then based on that, I came up with this solution, socialized it, and we said, let's try this. And I think you explained that pretty well. And then, I'm sorry?
And my approach for I'm learning for that is using the STAR. Situation. So you're familiar with STAR?
Yeah, situation. Go through those acronyms. What is T is what? Task or something?
T is task. ST, so STA. A is action, and R is result. Okay, so when I hear certain questions, I think that it applied to it. That applies to the STAR, then I'll use it. Which is usually behavioral questions, sometimes behavioral situations, upset customer, or even a customer success story. I think all of those questions fit up under using the STAR acronym. Is that correct? Yeah, STAR. I just same thing. Problem, solution. But see, STAR is is T task. Is that what it is? But there is a solution here because there's a problem. I don't know if there's an acronym for that. There's a problem. There's a solution. Then there is a outcome, right? Problem, solution, outcome. Then there's a role. What was your role? And then what was the lessons that you learned? Because you could have done something that may not have been accepted, but you learned something. Maybe what you learned is the way you tried to engender support within the company. Something didn't, just because you worked on a problem, there was a solution, doesn't mean that it was a success. It could have been a failure, but that doesn't mean that you didn't learn anything from that. So everything cannot be always successful in a company. That at some point you're also willing to take some risks. And that's also important, that it's not always everything ends up hunky-dory, like I did this and everything worked out. No, everybody's job isn't like that. That's a fantasy world we're living in. So again, the point that I'm trying to make is that you want to have a conversation that shows that you have the breadth and the depth and the maturity to get the job done. And the one thing is, in sales, the one thing always you want to focus is, because you're hired to bring in money. I mean, your job is to bring in money. Without you, the company cannot survive. So you want to make them understand that you understand that. All these other things are fine, but at the end, the eye on that, the big prize is that you've got to generate revenue for the company. What is the best way to generate revenue? You know, you could generate a revenue by screwing a customer, but is that the right way to generate revenue? Initially, short term, yes. Long term, it could backfire and it could even cost you more. So always let them know that I'm always looking out on how to generate revenue, not your quota. Quota will take care of it if you do all the other things right. Because if you're playing quota game, then they might think that, you know, you could manipulate the quota in some ways. So you said, listen, I have a quota and I'm constantly looking at it on a daily basis. What kind of progress am I making with each account? What do I need to strategize? Who do I need to get involved? You're like the captain of the ship.
you got to bring in the resources. So for example, if you have an account where you know that you need a help from the CEO, then you get that CEO to make a lobby call to the other CEO. If you've tried like number of times, right, to get into that account, and you have now done your research, and what's holding it up is you don't know what that CEO is thinking. At that point, if you're not getting through that CEO, then the next thing to do is saying, listen, I've done everything at this point. I tried, I can continue, but otherwise I can end up wasting more time. Mr. CEO, can you lob a call to that CEO? And if your CEO doesn't do that, and he's not, then he's hurting the company, because that's his job. The best cold caller in a company is the CEO, because he can call any other CEO and can get the other CEO on the phone that you may not be able to. This is only if you feel like this is an account that at this point we need to take some chance and the CEO needs to help you out. And if you don't give in that account, you don't want to win it if everything has been tried. But if you get into a quarterly meeting and they said, what happened in that account? And you say, well, I lobbed so many calls, I sent LinkedIn email, I did everything, they got no response. They're going to fire you. They're going to say, listen, Greg, we're not hiring you to complain here. What else you could have done? You could have taken advantage of a partner. You could have found out this, you could have found out that. And I even and you can mention, and see, I even had you call them, and the CEO will nod and say, yeah, I lobbed the call, and what happened? They didn't respond. And the CEO said, Greg, at this point, I think you should just forget about that account for time being and come back to it after 6 months and see if you can resurrect it. But right now, move on to another account. That's when you have pretty much said, okay, this is as far as it's going to go. Otherwise, you're costing the company money by spending too much time in that account. So part of being a salesperson is being creative. And we all are sales in a way. I'm in a sales because I'm in my own business. So I have to go and generate leads and stuff myself. And it's hard. I have to constantly learning and constantly taking risks and constantly networking. So keep that in mind, that you got to make it seem like that you have the maturity and the wherewithal to generate revenue in an ethical manner.
Absolutely. I'm on board with you.
Yeah. And then if you do that, then they think like, this is the guy, because what they don't want is unethical salespeople. That really screws up company big time. And when companies allow that, that's not a good sign. In fact, if you see that, I would bail out of that company fast.
Yes, absolutely.
And you got to mention, look, ethics is very important because honesty is important. If something, like I said, there was a slide about customer experience, right? We said responsiveness, reliability, and relationship. What relationship does is that when they have a question, they're not going to, or concern, they're going to give you a call. Because when there's no relationship, then they'll interpret it in a negative way. That company doesn't care for us, so we're not going to even deal with them. Let's go to somebody else. If there's a relationship, that will not happen.
Absolutely.
So what kind of questions are giving you a hard time in these interviews? Anything that come up that you feel like I could have better answered it, or I need a better response, or anything like that?
I think for me, my most recent interview was about a week ago with a startup IT company by the name of TouchSource. They do digital interactive technology, so signage, waypoint, things of that nature. Interview with the recruiter went great. Actually interviewed with her twice. And the next part of the process was meeting with the VP or scheduling a phone call with a VP of sales. And it ended up being our 10-minute conversation. Wasn't the traditional interviewing. It was more of a conversation. He insisted that we both, since if there was an opportunity for he and I to work together, we need to know each other personally. And he wanted to he led the conversation before we got into my background experience, just learning more who I am as a person and more about my family / work-life balance. So I led with that, and he followed up and shared with me his life, a snapshot of his life, what it entails, what it looks like, what motivates him. And from there, we moved on to discussing my background. Only as I recap on the conversation, his response to the recruiter was that I would fit great within the organization, but for what he was looking for at the time, someone who come from more of a background of enterprise sales, the growth that they were looking to achieve through revenue would require someone who can obtain a higher average deal. And for the first time, remember, they're just a startup company. He said for the first time they had closed like $1 million deal. So that was big for them. So he felt like my experience was more catered to small to mid-market business. And his direction was looking to take the company and look for someone more of enterprise role. But the job description did not say that. Near the recruiter, she told me that the folks was small to medium-sized business, but I got on the phone with him, it's totally different.
Well, here's the problem that person doesn't understand, that a startup salesperson is not the same as somebody who's coming from an established enterprise company. That's not
Absolutely.
the same job. Like for example, I would not thrive I could, but it's a different ball game. It's a very structured environment, what he's looking at. When you're like a new company and you're just basically your sales force is not well structured. You know what I'm saying? Like I worked at Oracle where they got like global accounts and mid-market accounts and all kinds of stuff. It's so hierarchy laid out that that's what, because they're a big company. But when it's a small company, you need that entrepreneurial mindset. It's a different kind of a salesperson. And what they really needed was somebody like you. And then, because doing $1 million deal, unless they're established and they got a business that can support that kind of deal, then get it. But otherwise, the way to do it is to bring somebody who worked for a small company and can eventually grow to a larger deal. Otherwise, they're going to find that if they bring somebody from a big company, in a small company, the infrastructure and everything is so different from what they're used to. They're going to have a tough time. They're not going to function because everything is well laid out in a big company that is not in a smaller company where you got to have to fight. And they might be looking at a wrong kind of this VP of sales might not know what he thinks, that if I get somebody who's worked on $1 million deal, but at the end, a sales is sales unless there was certain technical things he was looking for, which you already have. So I'm not sure. I think they might have made a mistake here.
And I believe so too. And just hearing and just asking some of the questions that I had for him, I mean, they were not a well, I won't say profitable company. I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know how much of that revenue is actually profit, but annually they were only driving in $9 million a year. I mean, I've had quotas bigger than that.
Yeah.
And his goal, their annual goal this year was increase it to 13. So he believed in his mind for the first time, the close of 2018, they have closed a $1 million deal. So for him, he's thinking that's the only way I can reach this goal, because I mean, for one, they didn't have the sales force in place. It pretty much it had been 4 reps, one in the West. I would be on the East, and then they had someone in the Midwest, and then someone sort of in the South. So, I mean, I didn't beat myself up for it because I know that I was well overqualified, but I just want to share with you, those are the only 2 interviews I've had this for, and I'm more of having more of a strategic approach and really doing my homework and checking the background of these organizations before I apply, because I found out, it's not so much about the title and the pay. I have to find out how these organizations are set up, what type of infrastructure you have, what are some of the supporting systems or processes you have in place via sales enablement or just your sales channels, whatever the case may be, what type of resources are in place to help me be successful. So I'm really looking for an organization that's $1 billion plus, financially sound, that would have those resources available. And most importantly, to piggyback on what you said, having that infrastructure in place and having the individual who's focused on enterprise, mid-market and SMB space, and be able to find talent and place them where needed. And also give individuals opportunity to grow into some of those bigger or longer sales cycles. So those are only 2 that I have. Whatever I take, I try to learn from each situation, regardless of I win or fail, I think every opportunity is an opportunity for someone
Right.
to.
So here's what I see. The reason what I think based on what you just said went wrong here, it was in the qualifying phase. That recruiter, you should have, was it a she or he?
It was a she.
Yeah, you should have basically asked her, was she an internal recruiter or she was external?
Third party recruiter.
Yeah, those are bad. They're bad. You should have said, listen, before I get on the phone, so this is what I would have done. So let's say I'm Greg here. This is what I would have done with the recruiter. I said, look, I'd love to talk to the hiring manager, but I want you to find out ask him what exactly is the job here. How does he understand what the job is? What is the job? If he had brought up enterprise sales, then that what you already would have known. And so that's one question. So there are 5 questions you saw in my notes in my presentation. Do you understand the job? Can you get the job done? So you find out like what attributes does the candidate must possess that he feels can get this job done, that he has defined. He has to define the job, right? Don't go by the job description, because the job description, he may not have even written the job description, okay? And then what else is he looking for? Anything else? There are intangibles that they're looking for. And if that recruiter doesn't make you feel comfortable, then you can't get on the call with the hiring manager, because it's turned out that he was looking for something that could have been easily picked up if the recruiter had done the job properly.
Absolutely.
You don't want to get on a call with the hiring manager and suddenly you find out that he's looking for somebody who's doing $1 billion deal. He just wasted your time. I mean, it's fine to tell him about your background and your family man and all that, but at the end, that's not what decided anything. What decided is that he was looking for somebody who was doing $1 million deals, and what in your background you're showing that that's not what you have. Or if that is something you can overcome by saying, listen, even though I'm not doing $1 billion deals, I think I'm pretty comfortable. Or if you really, how far you want to push it, right? But if that was the elephant in the room, as I like to think of it, that
Yes.
came up, and you cannot change his mind. But if it doesn't become less of a concern, then it's a non-starter. That's not a fit at that point. Then you're not going to change his mind if that's absolutely what he's looking for.
Absolutely.
But at least you can say, if the recruiter had said, look, Greg, this is what I would say, this is where I think that you need to get better at it. If the recruiter if you had found out, is there anything, what is the elephant? These are the 3 questions that one thing you want to find out. Like, what are the 3 things he likes about my background? And what is the one main concern he has about my background? And let's say that concern was about the enterprise sales part of it. And then you could tell the recruiter, say, like, I understand his concern, but I think I'd still like to talk to him to understand what exactly is his concern. So I understand it. And if I don't think I can overcome it, then I think you can mutually decide that this doesn't look like a fit, because you're definitely looking for somebody. It doesn't mean you don't talk to him, but at least you're going with a realistic expectation that this is going to be more difficult to change anybody's mind. And you're not there to change his mind. You're just trying to add value any way you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually pulled up, here's the email from the third-party recruiter and what she had to say. She said that after she did hear back from him, after completing his interviews this week, he has ultimately decided to move forward with another candidate that he felt had more experience and more aligned with what he's looking for in this particular role. He mentioned he genuinely enjoyed your conversation and felt you were strong in so many ways, and Ashley said that he would love to hire you for a more SMB focused position. But unfortunately, he doesn't have anything open at this moment that he felt would more closely align with your core skill set.
Okay. But that didn't come up before that.
No, this was after.
But but the resume, but before that, the recruiter didn't tell you that these are the specific things he's looking for. And I just want to let you know that he would like to talk to you. This position, he's looking for somebody with that. Yeah, that's the missing part of it. Because if that was a non-negotiable item, then there was no chance that you would have been able to convince him that you were the right candidate for this job.
Absolutely.
Because remember, there's got to be some risk that both sides have to take. You're taking a risk, and he has to take some risk. And if he's getting everything he's looking for, then he's looking for a perfect candidate.
And that's one of the things I think I was sharing with you. I said, I believe sometimes these hiring managers or VP of sales, whoever the case may be. I think sometimes they're unrealistic because they're looking for perfection. If he would have took more time and highlighted his area of concern, which I asked him at the end of the call, was it anything that he would like to touch on, any red flags or concerns that he may have in regard to my background experience? Or was there a question that he feels like I did not fully answer to his understanding? So at that point, we can remove all objections off the table. I mean, I am selling to you, I'm pitching to you, I'm trying to, this is what I would do if I had a prospect in front of me. So I'm following the sales process. I'm looking to hear objections so I can overcome. So now you can see like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing, but you didn't give me an opportunity. You ended the call and you had one little nugget that you used to keep me from getting this opportunity. I don't like things like that because I'm looking to better myself each and every day. So when I feel like if I ask those type of questions, to piggyback on even what you said earlier, asking for that post-interview after the interview. Some people they don't have it in them to have those conversations. They hide behind the third parties or they send out their automatic email so they don't have to deal with that candidate. I'm not that one.
Yeah, but that also tells you that those are not the kind of companies you want to work for. But here's another thing. The right in the beginning, okay, so this one was a phone interview, but right in the beginning, you have to somehow seize control of the interview because that's where the interviews are either won or lost. Let's say the recruiter in this case wasn't a top-notch recruiter because the recruiter is basically playing a numbers game, but you need to make the recruiter your friend and saying, listen, I'd like to talk to him, but I still don't feel comfortable that I have all the necessary information to have a good conversation that could lead to something. So let's say at some point you just kind of take a flyer and say, okay, I'll talk to him and just get it over with. And once you talk to the manager, the VP of sales, the first three questions should be, what exactly is the job here? Okay, tell them I'd like to ask you these three questions, and then so I can focus the rest of the interview to make sure I'm addressing the things that are important to you. The first question is, let me make sure I understand the job and let him then define it. So here's how I understand the job. Is this correct? Let that be validated by him. So now you got this number one thing taken care of. The second question is, what are the three things that really impresses you about my background? And now he'll tell you, okay, three things that he likes about, and it has to be three. If it's more than three, then you're a Superman, okay? Three things have to stand out. Then the last one is the most important question. What is the main concern you have about my background? And that's the elephant in the room. If there's any reason that it doesn't go forward, it's that one. If he had told you right in the beginning that, look, I like your background, but there's one concern I have, it's your lack of enterprise sales background. And at that point you say, I agree with you. And hopefully after the end of this call, that'll become less of a concern. And that's Absolutely. All you can do. You can never say that this is not going to be a concern. It'll become less of a concern because he's right in what he's thinking and you're right in what you're thinking. And you can't change anybody's mind. But what you can do is that if these three things are overwhelming in the way you interview, then that other concern may not be a bigger concern where it doesn't say, okay, that's a concern, but I'd like you to meet with you face to face. At that point, you say, well, before we meet face to face, I'm assuming at this point that you're okay with my background. Now you basically are bringing me there to see whether I fit into your culture. And if he says, yes, that's now you got to go and perform. And if you perform, you'll walk away with an offer.
Absolutely. So I agree with you. And a lot of this conversation we have, I'll be able to piggyback to the presentation that you provided.
Yeah, right. Any other questions you have? I don't know. I mean, I can stay on for another 10
I just want to write these. Want some helpful hints going forward for me that you suggested was get to the point quickly, which is speaking probably in bullet points. And you said don't focus on the past. So when they ask these questions tell me more about your day-to-day work experience at Iron Mountain, which is my current employer. You're saying highlight it, but tie it back around to how it would fit with the current opportunity, because you kept saying, So if they're
asking, because see what can happen, the trap, okay, so that's a trap question, okay? Because they want to stick into the past, right? And the more you're spending in the past, they can nitpick you. You want to talk about the future. So
Okay.
you can say, so listen, here's how Iron Mountain worked. You know, we had try to be as general as possible and let them say, can you be more specific? Okay. And saying, well, how do you do it at the current companies? Any of it similar to what you're doing at your company?
Okay.
So like you just tell them, so like, what was the question? Like, what was your day-to-day job at Iron Mountain? Is that what
So tell me what a typical day looks like for you at Iron Mountain.
Right. So that's a fair question. So basically, a lot of it is prospecting, meetings, strategizing, follow-ups, things like that, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, you just give a high-level answer. That's what that would a day look like, right? And it can vary. No day is the same. So you kind of just generalize that. Look, no day is the same. But essentially, I try to break my day into the morning. I like to take care of all the calling, the middle of the afternoon for meetings, and then the rest of it, all the follow-ups, like that. I break it into third, like that. What does a typical salesman's day look like at your company? So now you're getting into a conversation.
Okay.
And they say, yeah, and say, you know, I'm always open to new ideas. That's how you always say, I'm always open to learn any new ideas. I'm very flexible, but this has worked for me at Iron Mountain, but I'm not saying that that's what I would use at other companies. I would be willing to look at, and every company is different in how they like to do it, but that's how I've done it in Iron Mountain. And part of it, that's what my manager liked it. I brought it up. Is this okay with you? So if you have a different idea, then I'm certainly willing to, work with you on that.
Absolutely.
So what you're saying is that I'm flexible. My manager this is something that manager and I agreed to is the right way for him to feel comfortable. But if I were to join you, I would have that same conversation with you to determine would you like me to work? And I'm flexible because I can, in the morning, I like to do this. In the afternoon, I like to have meetings. And in the evening, late in the afternoon, in the evening, I like to follow up with all the accounts and strategize for the next day, prepare for the next day.
Absolutely.
Something like that. So what you did was you talked about that. You brought in the manager, that this was all basically done because I was working in the companies. It was approved. It wasn't something like you're a lone cowboy, okay? My manager never had a problem with the way I worked. So I continued to do it because this was effective.
Absolutely. I agree.
So you talked about the past, but then you immediately brought it to the future. But how do you do it?
I think that was one of the things that you had highlighted from the our first phone interview that we had. You were saying that I need to do more than just answer the questions. I need to make it relate more to future of being in this position there. And I think I do an excellent job of answering the questions, but I need to take it and make it more to this current role. So they can say,
you're a great historian. You're a great historian. You know the history pretty well, but you got to go beyond the history and saying the history is a good predictor of the future.
Yeah. I like that. Historian.
So, there's something.
Was there any other takeaways that, from you just when we did do that mock interview that I think these are great, just, getting to my point more quickly and then more relating it to the current opportunity that I'm applying for.
Yeah, you got to do your research. You must have, that's why I'm saying before you get on a phone call, the recruiter should become your friend and ask, okay, here's another thing to find out. How many people has the recruiter sent to this manager before you? And what happened to those people? What worked? Why those guys didn't get the job? What happened to them? What was their background? Why they didn't get the job? That's an intelligence you've got to get from the recruiter.
Yes,
so find out, say, okay, I'm sure that manager has looked at, and if you find out, I sent 10 people and he's very picky, right away, that's a red flag. Like, okay, you're telling me there are 10 people that went ahead. I know I'm good, but the other people couldn't be that bad because if he's willing to talk to them, what happened to them?
It's funny that you mentioned that, Jay. The day before I had the phone conversation with him, I touched base with the recruiter one more time, and she said, this could be some good news for you, or you can take it how you want. She was like, all the other candidates that he's interviewed with this week, that was for the same position that I was applying for, he's passed on. He's decided to move forward and continue the interviewing process. So at that time, I looked at it as like, well, this gives me an opportunity to, I guess, impress him, knowing that, you know, any other candidate before him has not really caught his attention. But quite frankly, I guess I didn't impress him enough. So I'm not concerned about it. I think he was more unrealistic, or maybe he didn't set the tone and let it be known what he's looking for in that particular role. But I've definitely moved on, and you know, that was once I spoke with him. I think a week later, I did the phone interview with you. So I'm going to use all resources I can, so I can better my.
Next time before you have an interview, if you just want to kind of go strategize before your next phone interview or a face-to-face, just let me know, and we can just kind of do what we're doing now. One other thing is this: I just remembered. Whenever somebody's asking you a question, you got to find out what's really behind that question, because a question has a lot of information in them. They're not just asking you a question for the sake of asking you a question. So if suddenly they ask you, you know, have you had experience with enterprise sales? That means that what he's asking is, I have a major problem with enterprise sales. So at that point, your answer has to be that, yeah, I understand that enterprise sales is like the lifeblood of your company. And I completely get it, that it's very important that a rep can really, I'm comfortable with it. You know, in my other job, I didn't have that opportunity. Doesn't mean I can't do it, just that the other place. But, you know, if it's something like that, you feel like, because if you're there and that he's hung up on enterprise sales, and
he never mentioned it, not one time during the call. Not one time did he mention.
Oh, he did. Okay, yeah. So they just made up some bogus. He just made up some bogus answer. He doesn't want to. But at the end of the call, so here's another thing. So remember I was saying you basically are spending time. You spend an hour with them. You need to ask the guy bluntly, because you're a salesman, and salesmen have to ask the tough questions. So, Mr. VP of Sales, what do you think of me? What do you think I can get this? Do you think I understand the job, and do you think I can do this job? And if he says yes, so then what's the next step? And if he says, well, I have to think about it, I got a few more people I'm talking to, and you should say, listen, I understand you got candidates, but I need to know by close of business tomorrow whether we're moving to the next step, because I have same situation that you do. I have other offers on the table, and I have other interviews that I have to decide whether I want to take or not. Something like that. But do not let him get away saying, I'll let you know. You get him the time. I need to know by close of business tomorrow.
Yeah,
I understand interviews. You may lose that job. You may come across as, but you know what? In a sales situation, you have to push a little bit. Otherwise, you're getting pushed around, and you don't want to be pushed around, because you're professional. You basically are spending time with him, and you're giving him almost like 24 hours to just send an email saying, I want to move forward with a face-to-face interview. That's not that difficult thing for him to do.
And this is the thing that I dislike. One of the things, like at the close, the end of the phone call, when I asked those next steps, he put the ball back in my court, as if, like, you're the right fit. If this is something that you want to do, then I would recommend that you immediately follow up with the recruiter and express your interest that you want to continue to move forward. And then from there, we'll move on.
No.
That's how he.
No. Don't fall for that trap. Tell him, listen, at the end, you're the decision maker. He's the decision maker, and you're the decision maker. This decision should be made on the phone call. The recruiter's out of the picture. Recruiter's not involved at this point. It's you. Tell him, based on my conversation, I think there's a fit here. You tell me, is this what you're looking for? I think what your company has, I can add value. And I would like to meet with you face to face and get to know whether I'm a right fit for your culture. Because talking more isn't going to change anything. Talking more is not going to change. So if you think that if you think the guy treated you fairly and you feel like you got a handle on the job, then you got to push immediately saying, listen, I think we need to make this decision on this call. I don't want to get the recruiter involved, but I'll just let the recruiter know that we're meeting. That's it. Recruiter doesn't have to get involved in setting up a meeting.
Exactly.
Open up your calendar. So just start opening. So I'm looking at my calendar. You gotta kind of do some gamesmanship. So I'm looking at my calendar. So when do you think would be a good time for us to meet? You know, because another thing you're doing is, as a salesman, you got to show that you have initiative. That so far it doesn't. So far, I'm not hearing anything that is what do you call a showstopper. So if there are no showstoppers, I think I'm interested. Are you interested? Then let's meet. That's it. Be direct. None of these things like, well, why? Anytime the recruiter is getting involved, that means they're not interested.
Yep.
Because if he's the VP of sales, he's not going to. He has to make tough calls, and he's not making a tough call with you. So you got to force the issue. Say, listen, Mr. VP of sales, I understand, but this decision doesn't require a recruiter. It's right now. Are we meeting or are we not meeting?
Absolutely.
And okay, I understand you have to look at your schedule that you don't have, but I need to know by close of business tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll move on. Otherwise, I have to move on to other opportunities. To be fair to other companies too. Tell them I have to be fair to other companies, and that's what I tell them. That 24 hours is all I can give them, because otherwise it's not fair to the other companies who are very upfront about all this thing.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Jay.
So you gotta get a little tough, because if they see that you're tough on these calls, then they know you're gonna be tough as a salesperson. So you gotta really be tough on these calls. And if they think that they're pushing you around, then they're basically thinking that this guy is not gonna be the kind of salesman who's gonna bring in the money, is gonna have that tough conversation across a C-level that he's gonna be sitting there opposite.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, do it in a professionally, because you got a nice speaking style, very composed and calm. So you don't need to yell like me. I can lose a little bit, control. But you seem to be very controlled. Just do it in a calm manner, the way you're talking right now, and I think that'll be very effective. That you're not going to get frazzled by. These are questions. There are tough questions, hard questions, and there are uncomfortable questions. The question you're asking him is an uncomfortable question, and you've got to ask uncomfortable question, because a lot of people don't like to ask uncomfortable questions.
That's true. Well, let me ask you this, Jay, before we depart ways. What are your thoughts? I've had just this week direct recruiters that work within the organizations reach out to me because they were impressed by what they've seen on LinkedIn. And it's sales position, but it's more sales or products that I hadn't sold before. Specifically, for one, I have a recruiter who's really intrigued. We had a 30-minute conversation. She was quite impressed with my conversation, and she is interested that she's asking that I look at possibly selling financial services when they come to for businesses, like a financial representative. I've never sold that before, but they're not.
I would stay what you like, because those kind of positions may not be right for you, because right now you have experience in stay in the tech side. That's your comfort level. You don't need to go into other areas like that, because
in recruitment, I've had a lot of organizations like actually one of the military recruiting companies reached out to me this morning asking if I'll be interested in possibly doing some recruiting, working from home. I don't have that experience. I mean, it's similar to what I would have done at Robert Half Technologies that I was telling you, speaking of earlier. I just don't know. Yeah, I don't. As I think long term, it could be a short term fix just to stay working. But career wise, I don't think that's my target. I'm like what I told you before. Some organization that's a software platform, something of that nature. That's going to be more long term versus these. It's too specific. And if I decide to leave, it's like a 180. Like, here we go again. Now I'm going back to what I left from because I decided this is not going to be for me. So I try to eliminate in the beginning and say, no, I don't think this is the career path that I'm looking for.
Yeah. I think those recruiters are very aggressive because they're just trying to get anybody into these jobs and these type of like financial services and all that, unless you really like doing that. But if it's outside what you have already done, then I would not pursue that. I would stick to the IT side. That's your background. That's what you have done. You can speak to that. And there are plenty of jobs in that space because company IT is what drives everything. So why would you want to go into something else? Because because financial services, I think a lot of those jobs are not, I mean, they say that you need financial advisors. I always tell people that you show me your 10-year performance against mine. And if it's a lot better than mine, then talk to me. Otherwise, don't waste my time. I don't want to.
I agree.
I don't want to hear about like, oh, you can do this, you can do that. Because everybody that I ever talked to who went with the financial advisor or financial planning, they ended up doing worse. Like my sister, she has a business in Florida, and she said, oh, you know, I went to see a financial advisor. This was a while back. And my dad actually was pretty good with financial. He has his portfolio that he does pretty well with. And the first thing the financial planner or advisor to do was to sell her Apple stocks. She said, oh, you have too many Apple stocks. You need to like diversify. I said, you know, these guys like Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett, the one thing they don't do, they don't diversify. They're all in to that company. That's it. They don't say, you know, I think I made enough at Amazon now. Let me just diversify and put it into bonds and treasuries and stuff like that. They don't do that. They just stay with Amazon. And now he's the richest man in the world. And all these people, they diversify. Oh, the market could crash any day. And they've been saying that for 10 years. So if those people who did that lost out big time in 10 years. They're waiting for that Armageddon to take place, you know, where the market is going to crash and you can take out that money from the treasury that you made like 3% for the last 10 years. In the meantime, if you had Amazon, you would have made 5 times, you know, the price if you had bought it 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so I would just focus, getting back to your question, I would focus on the IT so you really have a focus. Otherwise, you're going to be, you know, jerked around in all directions. And I don't think you want to do that. I mean, it doesn't hurt to talk. If you're at home and just it's a phone call, talk, but then just get out of it. I wouldn't go on a face-to-face interview because I don't think financial service is where you want to be. I think IT sales is where you probably want to be because you already done that. And that's not a bad place to be.
Absolutely.
Because IT is going to be around. IT is going to be around for a long time. And a company needs to, all the companies need IT solution. And with IT, you can branch out into so many other areas. Like machine intelligence is becoming big. So all these companies are going to need new type of cloud-based software. All that is very important.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, so I wouldn't get into insurance and recruiting and all of that kind of stuff. If you just want to talk to them on the phone, but I would only focus on anything to do with IT sales. I think that's what you want to do.
Okay.
So, do you have any questions for me? I think we covered quite a bit, and I think the best thing to do is next time before you have an interview if it's like a company that you're not interested in, then just take it. But if there's a company that's doing IT sales and you're really interested in it, then let me know and we can do a 1-hour call and just go over certain things before the interview.
Sounds good. I'll do that for some of the positions that I apply for, and I'm getting ready to actually do the face-to-face. I'll definitely get you engaged as soon as I can get confirmation on a time I'll, you know.
And the job description, just send me the job, and this time make sure it's a correct job description, because last time they sent me some hotel embassy job. And I was like, wait a second, this guy's going to be working in the hotel. But then I look at your background, I said, there's nothing here I see that says that you worked in the hospitality industry. So I said, why is he going from IT to hospitality? But I said, okay, I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah. So there was a mistake there made on their behalf. But
That's another thing. Never take anything for granted, because all these people, is a sales, you got to make sure that everybody's doing it correctly. Just say, hey, did you make sure you got the right, you didn't get that description, right? They just sent it to me.
I never received it. I didn't know anything about it till the end of our call, or about midway through the call, when I wondered why you continue to reference.
Who is your Hire Heroes contact? Do you have somebody that you talk to who's like kind of overseeing this? I don't know. It
was Shakia, I think Austin. Is that her name? Shakia Austin. She was the first one to reach out to me in regards to the resume. She did help prep with the resume. I got my resume together. I watched the little videos and learned how to tailor it per opportunity that I applied for. And then she told me about the mock interview, and I told her I was interested. And then at that point, I was able to connect with you And, since then we've
Yeah,
been able to.
because my point of contact, because I don't talk to Tia. We don't talk. So my point of contact is coming from Hire Heroes, and that's
Okay.
someone named Karina something. So Karina's the one that contacted me. I don't get the name of the person
Yeah.
that.
I think Shakia Austin, it says that she's Hire Heroes USA. She's a transition specialist.
Yeah, I don't talk to the transition specialist.
Okay, yeah.
So the
So
transition
she just sent it
specialist,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
the transition specialist talks to these people that are based out of Atlanta,
Okay.
near Alpharetta somewhere. I don't know where their office is, near Alpharetta somewhere. And then they contact me because we are all volunteers. I think Chakia is probably a paid employee.
Yes, she's an employee there. That's correct.
Yeah, so she's a paid employee, and then she goes to the Hire Heroes headquarters, and then they find people like me saying, "Hey, are you available to work with Greg or so?" Because I'm working with another veteran right now in Idaho, and I've been so you two are the only ones I'm working with right now.
Okay.
And
well, thank you. I greatly appreciate your time and what you do. Your advice has been very helpful.
Yeah, I want you to get a job. I mean, I think you got all it takes. I think just a little tweaking here and there. You got the experience. You got the military experience. Does that ever come up in any of these interviews where they want to know more about your military experience?
Well, most of them will acknowledge it, but they don't really go into the details of it. They'll say thank you, or some try to relate and just discuss family members that they have that might be active service or served before, but it's not. They really don't go into great details of it.
Well, why do you think so? Because there's a lot you learned in the military that they're not interested in at all. Knowing, like, for example, I could ask you, so Greg, what kind of skills did you learn in military? That would be, so again, that's another question they could ask you. So they'll ask you what kind of skills, and you got to be careful here. You don't want to get into military speak here, okay? Because that's a tendency that happens with people when they get military. Oh, let me tell you everything I did military, JSOC and BSOC and all kinds of acronyms you can throw at them, right? And what they really want to do is you just say, look, I'll tell you there are three things that really, like leadership, collaboration, or something. And then pivot to their company saying, those are the same skills that you need within your company to succeed. So now you talked about military, and you're saying that those are the transferable skills that you need if you want to be a success. And keep this in mind. You do also want to play up this I always tell these people, because military people don't like to speak up to talk about that military is the most prestigious organization that we have in this country. So don't say I worked in the military. It's the most respected organization we have in this country. So that's an honor. Look, it's not just that you did service, which is an honor itself, but there are a lot of valuable skills that I learned in military that are very valuable in the civilian world too, like leadership, leaders, because you probably traveled all over the world too, I bet, in Navy, right?
I did.
So you have a lot of things in the military that you can talk about and saying, look, I got international experience. I worked with diverse people, diversity. I think you one time mentioned diversity is very important.
Now I was going to piggyback and, from our first mock interview, when you asked, you were one of the first that really wanted to dive into the depths of my military career. And I just, I don't know if you remember the call, but I just share with you, I like to use that as the foundation of my career. And through diversity and being coachable and things like that, I usually pick 2 to 3 bullet points that I can speak there where it's transferable to the current opportunity. So they can be like, okay, well, he's been doing this since the start. He learned this in the military. He's applied it throughout his professional career. So I do.
Right. But here's the thing. When you say, I would not even say military. I would just say, I learned this in one of the most respected organization in this country. That's how I would say it. Because military kind of is like military. Could be anybody in the military. So I would just say that I learned it from the most respected organization in this country. Don't say
like that.
Don't say
military.
Yeah, yes. Military, that I've learned these skills from the most respected organization, because everybody always says, these are our best and the brightest and whatever, right? So I learned it from the most respected organization that exists in this country. And these are the skills that I learned. And I believe those skills are transferable any place. And people really need those skills in order to compete and be successful. Because, there are 2 things that remember. that you have. Leadership and followership. Those are two important things. They go together. That in military, you lead when you have to lead. Otherwise, you follow as best as you can, unless you need to lead. Because that's what companies want. They don't want everybody to be a leader, because everybody cannot be a leader. There's got to be somebody who needs to follow. So tell them what military taught me is how to be a leader when I need to step in, but also how to follow to get the job done. At the end, it's getting the job done. Getting the job done means that sometimes you have to lead when it calls for it, and sometimes you have to follow when that's what's called for. But at the end, you're basically measured on the mission is successful based on success, and success means you lead or you follow, and that's what you have to decide, which one will get the mission accomplished.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%.
So I would not just say, oh, I don't want to talk about the military, because then you're diminishing something that you spent 4 years of your life doing something very honorable. That I would just play it up and say that I didn't work in the military. I like to say that military is not the word I like to use. I like to say it's the most respected organization, and I firmly believe it based on the feedback I get from people on how much they think of the military experience that I had. It is the most respected organization for what you guys do when you're in the military.
You're absolutely right. And thank you for highlighting that. And I would definitely make that switch going forward in regards to speaking towards my...
Because right away, they're suddenly comparing like, well, you haven't worked for a big company, you work for a small company. At that point, you got to come through and say, wait a second, I work for the most respected organization, and it's the largest organization that exists probably in the world.
Yes, right? Absolutely correct.
And I learned a lot of valuable lessons. So I can, even though it's a big organization, but it's also very team-based. It's very team-based. I know how to work.
As well. Huh? Strategic planning as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, but the burden is on you to bring it up. They're not going to ask. So whenever they ask, you have to bring it up and show that this guy's got real depth. He's got gravitas. He knows what he did in military. It wasn't some, like, you know, trying to get there to pay the GI Bill or something like that. He really, really understood what his role was.
Great point.
Yeah, right. So any other questions before we, so I think, how do you feel now? I think you should feel more confident. You gotta you gotta have a narrative. Like, you gotta have a message. Like, what is the message that you want to convey to somebody, that who you are in essence? Like, what do you do? Like, that's the message you need to communicate whenever you talk to somebody. They may not remember much, but they have to remember your message. That, you know, that guy Greg, he had a very good message. And here's an idea. You have a.
So you said make them remember your message?
Yeah. So because you were in the military, and this is how you can tie everything together, you have that server mentality, right? That I joined the military to serve. And that's how I view my sales position, that I serve the customers. And if I serve the customers, then the company will be taken care of with its objectives, business objectives. Come up with a message like that. That's your message.
That's great.
And then once you have a message, then everything kind of starts flowing from that. And that message gets to be repeated. That, as I said, I have that server mindset. That's why I joined one of the most respected organizations in the world. And I'm hoping to join your organization. Hope it's, respected just like that. If you know anything good about it, that if you've read some good things, then you can even mention that, I've worked for one of the most respected organizations, acknowledged by everybody. And I hope to learn. And remember, it's to serve, learn, and grow. That's the message you should have.
Serve, learn, and grow. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I'm just making up top of my head. I don't know.
No, this is great.
So if they ask you, Greg, what are you about? What are you going to say?
Serve, learn, and grow.
Yeah.
I like that. And I will use that going forward. Thanks to Jay.
I need you to be successful, because then.
Courtesy of Jay. I'm going to have a success story for you soon.
Yeah, and then I need a video. So everybody that has been successful, we end up doing a video. And then I let hire heroes know that if they want to, because they want to hear from your story, because they like to hear success story. I don't know if other volunteers do that or not, but for me, each one that are successful are like a badge of honor. Like I kind of consider myself as like a band of brother, you know. I'm part of your team. So when you win, I kind of win de facto. That hey, there's the guy up there. He's got a job. He got the mission accomplished, and then hopefully, you know, he'll have a very good future from there. All right, so let's do this. I'll let you go, and let me know when you have a next time something that you think that's you like and you want to really go in and get ready for the face-to-face interview.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for your time again, Jay. I appreciate your feedback and helping me set up structure throughout this interviewing process. And my plan is, as soon as I can get confirmation on a face-to-face, more similar to the positions like I was telling you before that I'm interested in, I'll send over a job description to you and schedule time where we can at least coach or prep before I do the face-to-face.
Right. One other thing I forgot to mention is this, and I'll just mention it in passing. Before you ever get on a call with the hiring manager, ask the recruiter to send you 3 areas that hiring manager wants to focus on.
Send 3 areas that the hiring manager wants to focus on.
Yeah, in the call. So that way you are prepared to delve into that. They can always ask a follow-up question, but that way there is a focus on what exactly, so you know exactly what are the things that the hiring manager really wants, because otherwise the call could be all over the map, okay? And also you may want to limit the time. Tell them, let's do a 30-minute call instead of a 1-hour call. That way, because you can always extend it, right? So do a 30-minute call, and since I think he's busy, we'll do a 30-minute call, and let's figure out 3 areas. And here's the thing. People like to, there are certain questions. You could always do another call. Remember, calls are cheap, okay? Face-to-face interviews are expensive. So you can do a 30-minute discovery call. Call it that, okay? So you position as a discovery call, that I'm available to have a discovery call, a 30-minute discovery call, and then find out 3 areas that the manager wants to focus on. So that call, let the manager do all the talking. Okay, you just ask your first 3 questions, 3 things they like, 1 concern, and then hand it off to the manager and let him ask you all the questions, 3 areas that he wants to focus on, okay? And then saying, okay, we need another call to go into a little bit more detail. I have 4 more questions, but right now I can't continue because, you know, we planned for a 30-minute call. You want to respect the time. Then have another call. So you're building relationship now.
Yes.
1 call isn't enough. Doesn't build a relationship. That's too much pressure on it. And then you want to see if anything changes in the second call. If you notice any more like liking towards you, like, yeah, this guy really got his act together. You want to come across like a pro. So do a first 30-minute discovery call and saying, I'd like to continue this conversation. So when would you be available to have another call? And that one, you can extend it if you want to for an hour. So now you have gotten all of the information out of the way so that when they may bring you for a face-to-face, then that essentially is where you perform, because there is no selling at that point. That's a performance. See, one of the things, even though you're in sales, one of the things I always tell people is the thing about interviewing, which is different, is because when you're selling, the other people are also selling you that maybe you're not the candidate they're looking for. So you don't want to sell too hard when you're looking for a job. But if you perform, the performance already does the selling for you. For example, Beyonce doesn't go around calling her fans, can you please attend my concert? They know she performs. That sells. Yes. That sells out her concerts. So performance is what we do, because we're not Beyonce. We don't have that kind of talent. So we got to perform when we go for a job interview. That's our performance. That's our Super Bowl. That's high stakes for us.
You're absolutely correct.
And I think you can perform because you're a performer.
Thank you, Jay. I like to consider myself as a performer.
Yeah. Do you sing, by the way?
No, I
You have
wish.
you have a voice that sounds like you could be a singer.
Or radio. What else we got? What else are you foreseeing out there, Jay?
I mean, you have a really like that because I don't have a good voice like yours, so I noticed it immediately. I said, "My God, this guy could become a public speaker."
I'll take note of that. I am just recently, some of the other resources that we had, that was one of the things that I highlighted. I would like to spend a little more time focusing on public speaking. I
Yeah,
foresee myself speaking in front of crowds in the future in
right.
an enlightened,
And take singing lessons. You take some
enlightened.
singing lessons. I'm opening a different career for you.
Yeah, second options. I like those options.
Okay, so so just let me know, and then we'll set up another call. Okay, and I'll send you the link of this recording so you can review it.
Okay, sounds
Right?
good. And thank you again for your time today,
Hey, no
Jay. Have
problem.
a great day.
No problem. I'm on your side. So let's get you a good job, and I'll be very happy if that when that happens.
Absolutely,
But
same here. And I
view this thing. Don't get okay. Another thing I should point out. I keep everything every time we're about to end. I always have another thing coming up, right? Like Columbo. I don't know if you remember Columbo. There's always one other thing that he always had.
one more
Don't
time.
let this process get you frustrated. View this as a kind of a learning. You're learning about yourself. You're learning
Yes,
about other companies. So don't get yourself into that R word that creeps in after a while. Because I always tell people that there's only one rejection, and that's death. Everything else is all learning. People live through rejection of organs. My brother, he had a kidney failure, and he's doing well. So there are really no rejection in life. It's if you consider something a rejection, then it is a rejection. But rejection means that you're not learning fast. You're not learning well. So all these things that happen, like that interview, the guy brought up enterprise sales, that became a learning lesson, and that's what we did just now. That's something like, hey, I got to get better at my game. You got to up your game based on what you just learned from all these experiences. And if you keep that mindset, then these things become product enjoyable. Like, here's what I learned from this, and document it. That's the best thing. Document it and send it to me. I could include in my talks. Because part of it is that eventually I'm going to write a book on all this. And right
right.
now, the reason I'm not writing it is that I want to give more speeches so that I can, because every time I give a talk, I learn. By the way, that's one of the best way to learn when you give a talk, because when you're in front of people, you really perform and you find out, like afterwards, I found out yesterday, there are so many things I could have done better. But unless you do it, you don't know. So all the stuff you're doing right now, become a student of it. That I interviewed with this company, I didn't get this qualified properly. I need to up my game on that part so that this doesn't happen again. So treat this as like I got a game plan going in with, and I'm going to stick to it. But if need be, I could tweak it a little bit. But stick to a plan, because if you don't have a plan, then you'll be all over the map. You will not come across as a person who can do the job. So the only way you can do the job is if you interview like you're doing a job.
Absolutely. Interview like you're doing a job.
Yeah, so you got to be methodical. Like one of the tip I put, like if you go for a face-to-face interview, you take a document that you create and saying that the 90-day tentative 90-day value delivery plan or something, right? And
Like activity plan, 90-day activity plan.
yeah, but basically want to deliver value. So I would make it like activity sounds like, but value delivery plan, 90-day value delivery plan. Saying, by the way,
that value value deliver plan.
delivery plan, because you're going to deliver value, right? So it's a value delivery plan that you have put together, and it's a tentative. So you just need a cover. If you can have, and you can put anything in there, communication plan, learning plan, different kinds of plan, and then you just write down.
You have a sample version of what that looks like?
I had to put it together. No, I had it because I used it one time for a job, and
Okay.
the manager's eyes. So I said, by the way, his name was Greg. His name was Greg Wattis. I said, Greg. So I went to meet with him face to face. He had come here, and I said, I already started because here's what it does: that when you put together a value delivery plan, then you're already ready to start running the first day on the job. Because a lot of these companies, here's another thing. They don't have one of these things, by the way.
You're right.
They don't have one of these. They'll hire you, well, Greg, join in and, we'll figure something out. And for the first week, you're just sitting on the desk like, what am I doing? Reading manuals and stuff? Like, what the hell is going on here? Lunch is like the highlight of the day. So what you want to do is that engagement plan, customer interface plan, come up with all kinds of names, okay? And just say, look, I already have a communication plan, but this is tentative. So once I want to share it with you, we can firm it up when we're ready to start before I join. So now they're thinking like, my God, this guy's already got a plan, but the other guy doesn't have a plan. I'm going to hire Greg. He already knows what he's doing.
That sounds about right. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. So I don't have a draft template I can send you. Maybe you can help me create one. Maybe we can create one together if you're interested. So we can create a 90-day value delivery plan that you take, even if it's nothing more than a cover and blank pages, but at least you have started thinking about it.
Right. I agree. I think I'm gonna go to the drawing board with this one. 90-day value delivery plan.
So you basically say, okay, for the first week, here's what's going to happen. For the second week, here's what's going to happen. And then you just and a lot of it you can pull up from the job description.
Absolutely.
And then say, look, this is a tentative. That's the big word, tentative, because you haven't started yet. Once I get an offer, we'll firm it up, talking to other colleagues, and create a final. So if it goes from tentative to final, then it'll be finalized once we agree when I'm going to be starting. So you're already talking about the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did that and it worked, by the way. I did that once and it worked. I actually took it. It was an accident. I had no idea what I was doing. So I just took it with me. And immediately the manager said, can I see it? And I sort of said, like, Greg, I said, he said, no, this is about, basically what I did was that he didn't have to do any work for me because I already did it for him.
Yeah, and then one of the things I like bringing things like that to the table because it helps minimize, it shows that you're being proactive to help minimize that ramp up time in the beginning. In sales, we all go through a ramp up period.
Right.
So,
what you're doing, well, it's beyond that. What you're doing is you're doing your job.
Yeah, there you go.
Anymore. You've completely reframed the interview. You're essentially ready to get going right away. You're not saying, hey, this is a finality. I know I'm doing the job, but it's an afterthought. I'm already starting to work. Okay, get with the program quickly. Otherwise, you're going to lose me.
Yes, I'm moving on within 24 hours.
Look, I got a value delivery plan. You know what? If you don't want this, go create your own.
Exactly.
So I think that'll work.
I agree.
And the way you bring it up has to be tactfully. Like, I already started thinking about it. So I already started drafting my tentative 90, right now I'm calling it tentative 90-day value delivery plan. And once we decide when I'm going to start, we will work with you and you'll have to, and then and then you put down approved by and the manager's name.
Okay. I like that.
Value delivery plan for your name, and then said approved by this. So, eventually once you approve, it'll be finalized. So you kind of make it like really formal. That's your like, what they say in sales. You got to write out write the deal, right?
Yes.
So this is your deal. That value delivery plan is your deal. And then he'll have to eventually sign it. And you just change the word from tentative to final and just put a draft on the top, draft.
Yes, I like that.
And that's it. And then we'll create some unique way, and then you can bring it up, and we'll send that to Hire Heroes, saying that all Hire Heroes candidate, when they go for their interview, should use the Greg and Jay's tentative 90-day value delivery plan.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm on board.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't have any more. That's it. Otherwise, I'll keep you on forever.
I know. Thank you for your time and again your feet and the information insight that you share with me. What I'll do, I'll piggyback to the presentation that you sent over to me to make sure I tighten up my phone call screenings and obviously get in contact with you previously before face to face.
Yeah, and just rehearse it. Like what I do. Okay, I'll give you a little trick. Again, I knew this was going to happen. This call is never going to end. I carry an audio recorder all the time. And whenever I'm in the car, I don't use my cell phone for that because I like to use it for, it's one of those things that I just find it more convenient. So I use this primarily to practice all the time when I'm in the car or an office or anything, because I give talks. So I have to constantly practice my opening, my transition, my ending, and then all the ideas that I have. So like, I'll just put it in here. So I would use one of these and just kind of practice yourself, practice.
What'd you purchase that at? Or did you buy it online? Or?
I think I bought it in Costco. It's Olympus. It's an old one. It's not even worked properly, but they have these available. But it's a small one, and you can just then transfer it. That's what I use all the time. When I go for a walk in the morning, that's where I do all my thinking. So all my ideas are pretty much in here. Most of them I'll never be able to because there's too many. There's just too many, and I usually fill it up in like a month. They all fill up in a month. It's all full. It's got like
I will invest in one of those, Jay.
Yeah, and so that whenever you're in your car, instead of listening to music or something, you can just like practice, like, okay, Mr. Adams or Greg, so tell me a little bit about yourself. You just practice in the car, or you're like, outside walking, just practice. People might think you're weird, let them, but that's okay. No,
I will implement that going forward.
Right. And I usually like listen to podcasts and audiobook and stuff. So most of my time, I'm always doing something that either I'm learning something new or educating myself and either coming up with ideas. Because I don't think, most ideas I come up with are never mine. They're always other people, but then I rejigger them into mine.
Yeah.
Because everybody, I always say, even the dumbest person will at least have 2 good ideas. So I will talk to anybody because I know there's something they know that I don't. And even if they know something that they can't do much with, but I could do more with that. All right.
Yes.
So I will talk to you whenever you have a face-to-face. Just let me know, and I will. I'll make myself available. Okay.
Sounds good. Again, thank you for your time, Jay, and have a great day.
Yeah. You take care. Okay. Bye.